Welcome to A Gentleman's Guide, Corona edition.
Corona edition.
Kramer's on Skype. How you doing, Kramer?
Hey.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Kramer. And if could you turn to the side just for a second? I got you full screen so everybody can say Last Samurai Stephen Kramer.
Oh,
I like the Last Samurai look because you kind of always had a Tom Cruise-y vibe.
Yeah.
So now you are Last Samurai, which everyone hated that movie except for me. I actually enjoyed that movie.
I have a lot of swords, a lot of wakizashi. I got a wakizashi, I got katanas.
Oh, can we see?
Will you do a chopping video? Will you chop some like milk jugs like that fat kid on oh man, I've watched that kid. If I could meet him, I would hug his face. I have enjoyed his videos so much, and I don't mean disrespect when I say fat kid. It's just an easy. It's actually an uncreative way for me to describe what he looks like. But I knew
if you were a fat kid, you're allowed to say it. I think, right?
I guess, and I really wasn't. I mean, I guess a fatter dad counts, but. That kid has brought me so much enjoyment with those milk jug stabbing videos. They're so good. I mean, that kid, I've enjoyed that more than I've enjoyed almost anything Star Wars except for Mandalorian. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Kramer.
I bought a piece of art once that came in like messed up, and I wrote the artist, and he's like, all right, send me a video showing you destroyed it, and I'll give you another, I'll make another one for you. So I did take a sword and chop it on video for him. And
I remember that.
Make him smile.
I remember that.
Will you chop some stuff today?
Oh, look how happy Tom is. I want you to do some chopping.
Okay. Well, I want to see. Do you have your swords anywhere near you?
Or do you have an old dog that we can chop?
Yeah.
No.
A bird, maybe?
How about
I'm
a
trying
bird?
to rehabilitate my image from the years of doing the show together. And for whatever reason, I just don't think that's going to help that project.
Oh, so finally we agree that we've done damage to your brand? We've been telling you that for years.
Well, the only way to fix it is to chop a bird.
Yeah, everyone knows the only way to fix it's the only way out. The only way out, once you're Tom and Dan, you're Tom and Dan for life. The only way out is much like a gang of the mafia. We either get to beat you out, which we're not going to do because we love you.
It's a jump in or a jump out, right?
So you go with plan B, which is B for bird, chop the bird.
Yeah. One
good chopping.
Family pet. We'll take a gerbil or whatever.
Too hard to chop.
Yeah, if you have a
and like, why would you want to hurt a gerbil? Done nothing to you, but birds.
In Royal Tenenbaums where Chaz Tenenbaum breeds Dalmatian mice and he sells them to make money?
Yes.
I bred hamsters when I was a kid and sold them to pet stores.
Oh, you just got to text from your wife. You're ruining your brand again. I heard it.
They're telling you
you're
to
not
chop
chopping
birds.
a bird. I'm downstairs watching on Twitch. You're not chopping birds. Get off the phone with them now.
Yeah. Don't talk to them. I told you.
You're an idiot. We had a full month. We've made a lot of traction in the month.
Yeah, one bird will destroy every gain that we made.
You go for the obvious one bird for life.
We're out of practice, Steve.
Chopcom.
Chopcom. Hold on, I have to write that's the name of the show.
It's one bird for life. Chopcom. then you chop it. It's kind of like
I'm buying that right now. I have tears in my eyes, Steven. You can't see them.
You know,
I can only see Tom.
Yeah, because OBS doesn't play nice.
Yeah.
Look, we have to do everything free here. I have to use free software to switch cameras, which, by the way, looks a lot better than most of you guys out there using the stuff that costs a lot of money, just to toot my own horn. But I'm just going to say, One Bird for Life Chopcom is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life.
See, I know the secret reason that you're putting Tom and I on camera together is because either A, we interrupt each other a lot, or B, because you want us to go at it.
No. It's just easier for the guest to see, like, the camera one. Honestly, there is a method to this. The reason I don't put me on there is because I move around a lot, like pressing buttons, and sometimes I'm out of frame, and I'm afraid that's going to weird people out because it did weird out one of our guests that we interviewed via Zoom or Skype, and they were like, I could see them, like, they're like, where's he going? And I'm like, nah, I'll just put it on Tom. It's just easier that way because you're more consistent than I am, right?
So speaking of birds, by the way, I read an article. It was weird because I was actually doing it, that bird watching is up.
Well, that's only because
people are home.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do.
Nothing else to look at. And you can't buy a Nintendo. You can't buy a Nintendo Switch because they're all out of print or out of stores.
So I dug mine. I bought it when it came. Actually, Sam gave me one for my birthday or something a few years ago when they came out, and I put it away. I hadn't played with it forever since I finished up Zelda, and that was like my I went on a like rabid search for it, and then I found it, but then I couldn't find the charger, and it was a big ordeal. But long story short, I got my Switch, so I'm stoked.
Nice. Well, come see me tonight, this afternoon, 3 p.m. Taking everybody a tour on My Animal Island.
Yeah.
It's Danimal Crossing episode 1.
We'll have to send gamer tags to each other.
Okay, we can do that.
We're gonna start today doing some video gaming on Twitch.
I hate not following through with stuff, and it's a pet peeve. And Steven and I have talked about, I think we even did an episode of A Gentleman's Guide where we talked about how a gentleman, it's one thing to put the idea out there, but you actually do lose character. And I believe this. My dad was never one of these guys that would say he was going to do stuff all the time and never follow through.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we're going to keep on brand here, a gentleman follows through. And for a year now, we have said we wanted to get the Twitch component, and we were working on it, but other things happen. Now we're dealing with a virus. We've had deaths and tragedies and all kinds of stuff. Life gets in the way. But we are following through today with episode 1 of us on Twitch and using Twitch for what it's intended, other than IRL broadcast, which we do daily. We're going to do some gaming, and I'm pretty stoked about it, man.
Well, and that's the difference between honesty and integrity, right? Honesty is making your words conform to your thoughts. Integrity is making your actions conform to your words.
I love that.
And I think, we're notorious for not following through with stuff we say on the show, but it's different.
I think we have a pretty decent rate compared to a lot of people I know.
Yeah.
We all know that one guy.
What they say they're going to do. I mean, all the lofty goals that we all have in life. I mean, it's one thing to tell yourself something. That's different than telling other people, I guess. But, I mean.
We all know that one guy, though, that is always tossing out these really good ideas, but then none of them get off the ground, and we know that person, and I just don't want to be that guy. So we start today.
I have many bad ideas and do execute on all of them, good and bad. So
what I thought about this last night before I went to bed. I was thinking, I'm excited to see Steve. We haven't seen him in a month. We get to talk, some good old A Gentleman's Guide. What is the biggest thing? And I know you hate dipping your toe into law, especially when you have a sweet samurai bun. But do you honestly believe that it's going to be, once this thing opens up a little bit more, that it's going to be literally divorce crazemo? Or is it already divorce crazemo?
I think that depends on the economy. When they were talking about that V-shaped recovery where it's a quick, steep recovery, the idea behind that was that there wasn't structural damage to the economy, that it was just a pandemic external factor and that the fundamentals were good. The problem is this is dragging on so long that the concern is the fundamentals are now in rough shape and there's going to be some permanent damage, and therefore instead of a V, it's going to be a U, or even a U with a slower curve up.
Yeah.
And so that's a roundabout way of saying it depends on the economy. Because if the economy is bad, if we wind up in a depression or an extended recession, people will stay together even though they're unhappy, and they'll do it out of necessity because it's expensive to start two households. Sure. Now, granted, some people will, there's that X factor of people being forced together in this quarantine situation, and maybe they won't stick it out, but history tells us that in periods of slow economic times and recessions, divorce rate generally goes down. On the other hand, if the economy picks up steam, you will see a deferred demand for divorce, and you will also see probably an increase because of people having an increased conflict and not having their own personal space.
Okay. Yeah, no, that completely makes sense to me. I just didn't know if you were already saying, because I know you guys have been, doing almost like tele-law. We have telemedicine. Now we have tele-law, I guess, or, tele-attorney, or you can,
they have telephonic hearings and video hearings. In the courts even right now.
That's crazy.
The courts are almost the slowest to adapt anything.
Right. I just didn't know if you were seeing, because I know you do keep your thumb on kind of what would be considering the trend in what's happening right now, and you'd be like, oh man, Kramer Law, a lot of divorce, we are getting hammered with divorces, but I didn't know if it's too soon to even make that call, or if that's Yeah.
Steve.
It's too soon. I think people are pent up and they're locked down and they're not taking action right now for the most part.
That makes sense.
Steve, here's something I haven't heard anybody talk about, or at least it hasn't been prevalent in the news. What are they doing about juries and court cases and stuff? They've had to suspend those, but so that's got to
juries in. I just read the administrative order yesterday or Monday that came down from the Supreme Court, but they suspended jury trials, I think, until in July.
So that's got to cause an insane amount of like a backup in the system, right? Like you stop doing trials for a couple months and then you start them back up, and there's going to be a backlog of thousands of them, right?
You would imagine.
That's true, but remember, court cases overall have slowed down. You know, people are not filing lawsuits as quickly, so the volume isn't there. And also, when you talk about jury trials, a lot of times what that relates to is arrests, and arrests are down. So like in a county like Seminole County, for instance, I think the stat was normally 40 or 50 arrests a day. The last time I looked into it, they dropped down to 4 or 5 arrests in a day. So, a more than 90% drop.
Huh. So basically, since everything's shut down, all like crime is shut down, and like cases have shut down. So basically, you're not going to have the same amount of backlog you would normally if everything was continuing.
That makes sense to me.
They'll start it back up. Do you think this will change the system in any way, which they'll start enacting some sort of virtual? I had this thought.
I mean, they did a study, and in the most recent order from the Supreme Court in Florida, they identified different areas where technology could be utilized to handle those issues. So like alternative dispute resolution, various types of like juvenile delinquency hearings, lots of different types of hearings. And, frankly, that could be advantageous for people in the future, because it is inconvenient to have to go to court if your kid gets in trouble, for instance. They loitering, or they get arrested for something, they do graffiti or egg somebody's house and they wind up getting arrested. It's costly for parents to go to court for 3 hours or 4 hours to wait for their child's hearing, and there's a cost to that, a financial cost.
Sure.
So you think they'll ever do like a virtual jury where people can literally just be sequestered at their own house and do like?
Oh, I'd love that.
I think it's unlikely. The jury system isn't conducive to that. There's too many variables. But listen, if it depends on the dynamics of what happens here. I mean, at a certain point, they might start looking at the feasibility of something like that. I think this is something that is going to change everything, right? I mean, I've read a few articles on this recently. After people don't realize, they say get back to normal. After, think about September 11th, and after 9/11. Things never went back to the way they were. Things were different. We were an anti-terror state and a surveillance state from that point forward, and we gave up and traded certain liberties, and put security measures in place. I mean, the way you have to show ID at the airport, security stops in various places, metal detectors, X-ray machines, showing ID to walk into a big building. All kinds of measures that weren't there before are part of the normal day-to-day life. And the same thing is going to happen here. It's just what is going to be the new normal. And that's going to translate into various types of businesses and law.
I thought about that too. Like throughout history, like these gigantic events have happened and accelerated change. I've mentioned, I think the last time, like World War II, basically all the men went to go fight for war, like the war.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
like earthquake or flooding changes the shape, the geographic shape of a country. It's no different.
That's right. I mean, World War I, you lost an entire more death and more people actually in the military serving. You had an entire generation of men in France, for instance, just wiped out, and the consequences of that. I mean, every one of these wars or plagues historically has those after effects. I mean, the French Revolution, that's when the modern era starts. I mean, you look at any of these different plagues or seismic events. I mean, after the Spanish flu, I mean, it's not a strange coincidence or a leap of intellectual faith to look at the Roaring '20s and flappers and speakeasies in the United States, or the rise of fascism in Europe and economic despair after the World War I and
Sure.
that plague.
And I was talking about like the women going to work, like all the men went to go
War II.
fight for war, and then women started doing jobs that stereotypically at that time women didn't do. And then when the men came back, the world had changed. The society was like, oh, women can do all these jobs, and then
Especially
it just established
when you add in the number one liberator, birth control.
Right.
And then so this has made me think, I wonder if this is going to be the shift towards more of a virtual world.
I should say liberator.
And like 2020 will be looked back upon in history as this was the shift where everybody kind of went more virtual. Like this was the catalyst to the death of malls and the way people changed their shop. Like even though Amazon and virtual shopping and shopping online was already a thing, like this has made everybody.
Grocery stores were never though. I mean, grocery stores, that's going to be a big change, right? I mean, nobody bought their groceries online before. Now, I don't know the polling on it, but a lot of people buy their groceries online and through delivery.
Yeah. And now people will go back and there will be stores and obviously retail stores. Like, I'm not saying this will be the end of everything. I'm just saying like the stores that were barely holding on, the malls that were barely holding on. I think this will change. This will change movie theaters. I don't think movie theaters will be as popular in the future. I think the distribution change of entertainment and movies will be changed. I mean, Universal and the theater chains have already been getting in fights about how and they, so this.
Well, part of it depends on how long this lasts too. If this resolves, by the fall or by 2021 January, then that's a completely different effect on the world than if this drags on for a few years.
Yeah, but I'm saying
it's also weird from a, like if you like aesthetics or branding, and this is just an aside, I'll let you continue, but I'm just saying it is very odd to me as a creative. And I hate using that term, so I'm going to only use it once today.
Yeah.
But like 2020, just the fact that it happened on a year that's so, you know what I mean? Like the parallel between it is. It's almost like 2020. See clearly. It's the way your vision is. It's almost too perfect, right? To me, it's just too perfect to say like, oh, now we see things clearly, or this is a definitive shift, cultural shift in our world. It's 2020. It's just too convenient. It seems very, very movie-like. It doesn't seem real. It seems
it is surreal. I mean, it's strange, and it's one of those changes. I mean, World War I ended the 19th century for all intents and purposes. 9/11 ended the 90s. I mean, it was weird. I was watching Zoolander. They had like a Ben Stiller-a-thon or whatever yesterday.
I love that movie.
And Zoolander was on, and what was weird is it felt so 90s. I mean, so 90s. And you could almost pinpoint it as like it's pre 9/11 or at least filmed before that.
Yeah, the difference is that you see culturally that had long spans of time where things stayed exactly the same. We've talked about this even before in A Gentleman's Guide with like technology, where it's like, oh, there's only so much you can do with this iPhone. It's just going to get incrementally better.
Yeah.
But most of the thing stays exactly the same. What we're dealing with now is, social media, distancing, using FaceTime, using Zoom, using Skype was all incrementally needed. It wasn't a necessity.
Right? You have those incremental improvements in the span of history, and then you have those giant leaps.
And this is a leap.
For all of the evil and bad that World War I wrought and the death that it brought, it did do marvels for the advances of medicine. I mean, I think that it changed the way penicillin was used in antibiotics. There were just spectacular advances in medicine from that, despite the horrible consequences that happened after that, including World War II.
But then there's like weird things that happened, like going back to 9/11 and the way we travel and the way security was ramped up.
Yeah.
I think
I don't remember what it was like before.
Well, before you could bring knives.
No, for me. But think about how weird I am. I don't remember what flying was like before 9/11 because my fear kept me out of airports for the most part.
Yeah.
So flying the way it is now, I'm just like a kid that grew up with the internet, and it's, oh no, what do you mean you remember what it was like without the internet? To me, taking your shoes off, walking through the metal detector, taking the belt off, that whole thing is as normal as any other flight 35 years ago. Exactly the same.
And showing your ID. because you didn't necessarily have to show ID in the past.
Right.
You know, that was in Fletch. The guy hires Fletch to kill him, and he's going to leave him a ticket at the airport in that guy's name, not Fletch's name.
Right. Yeah. You could just buy a ticket for somebody and just like, here you go, bye.
Yeah.
You know?
Here, Daniel, take my ticket. It says Steve Kramer. You'll be fine with it.
Yeah. Just tell them. Just you'll be all right.
But we
you got a seat.
We also do things as a society that sometimes are a waste or based on fear. For instance, like I may be completely wrong with this, but like remember the shoe bomber, like one failed attempt.
Richard Reed.
Yeah, of the guy, the terrorist that tried to blow his shoes up and in a plane, and the entire nation has to take their shoes off now. I don't believe one shoe bomb was ever found after that, and the millions upon millions of shoes taken off. Like, we do something based on some small statistical likelihood because this happened, and we go like, oh my God, this guy had an explosive in his shoe.
Although I do think they had like intelligence on it. It wasn't just that one guy. They had intelligence that it was in the works. And the argument could be kind of like that, if you did it right, it seems like an overreaction is, well, we pooed on that party.
Yeah. You're right.
You're right.
But we react to things and then we change the way we do things based on one person of millions of things.
We're also the type of organisms where not doing anything is not an option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we need to do something because there's a level of almost acceptance and closure that we get for acting. So we have to do something, right?
Yeah,
no matter what. People bought up toilet paper and groceries it's the one area they could exert control in dealing with total chaos.
Yeah, when I used to always see, you could always tell when, and not everybody's wired this way, but you always tell we always had that certain friend that will over control the things in his life that are in his control because there's something else bothering him that's completely out of control. You see it a lot with marriages. My marriage is completely out of control. Yeah. So I'm going to go to work and I'm going to over control all of my employees because it's bothering me so bad and I have no other way. I have no other recourse.
Yeah.
And kids do that. That's why that's why so many kids are picky eaters or parents have difficulty at the dinner table is eating is one of the few instances where children can exert control.
Yeah, because they it's hard to stuff the broccoli down their throat like a dog and hold their nose.
I want to.
Yeah. So
I wish I had a couple of those chopping swords.
Anyway, Steve, what are some?
Is it chopping time now? Did you find the dog or bird we're chopping?
Law-wise, besides from like divorce, have you seen any uptick in anything else that?
I'm predicting an uptick in foreclosures and bankruptcy.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I was ahead of the curve in the last foreclosure crisis. That's why we were one of the biggest firms in the state that was doing it, and you can feel that we're getting calls on it already. And if things, I don't think there's going to be a foreclosure crisis in the next 6 months because there's a lot of forbearance and with Fannie Mae and federally subsidized loans, VA loans, there's forbearance in place. But what happens at the end of that 6 months is the unknown, and there's a good chance that you're going to see a spike in foreclosures, unfortunately.
Well, I read an article that my wife sent me the other day about like how home values actually rising.
I saw that.
Now, because there will be foreclosures, but that's based on people not being able, being laid off their jobs and not being able to pay, not necessarily like a devaluing of house values like there was in the mortgage crisis back in 2010, where
the issue is that could be temporary. It could be a temporary spike in housing prices because less people right now are putting their homes in the market because right now people don't want strangers in their homes and they don't want to move right now. But the bigger issue isn't today. The bigger issue is the long-term prospects. And if we have 40 million people unemployed, 6 months or a year from now, and people living off of unemployment that's significantly less than they earn to maintain their household, you're going to see you could see deflation where prices drop generally in the market, and that could also impact real estate prices. and two, you could see an increase in defaults, which would later on spike the inventory on the market and lead to the vicious cycle where you get that foreclosure spiral where people are defaulting because they can't pay, but two, people are defaulting because they're upside down and they want out. It's kind of a spiral when it happens.
What about this theory? I've heard that there's going to be a mass exodus of people in giant cities, and them.
Yeah, I read that yesterday.
And them wanting to go live
a little more rural
in a suburb or in places like just getting out of big cities because there's such a dense population. Obviously, the cities have been affected.
They don't want to deal with this again, is the idea, right?
Yeah, way more than let's say even here in Florida. Like you live in a regular suburban place in Florida. We're all pretty spread apart. We're not seeing the mass infection rate as the big cities have been hit the hardest, and people not wanting to go through that again and leaving to live a more suburban lifestyle in maybe a state that's not as densely populated.
Or that was already happening because of the recent tax law. With the way the tax law changed, they eliminated the part of the opportunity to deduct state income taxes. So in high state taxes, like in New York or California or in the Northeast generally, there was already an exodus starting because of the additional cost of tax burden. So that was already happening. This is just going to accelerate that. So yeah, you could be right. There could be maybe a situation where there's drops in values, but there could be areas of the country that do better than others. Like Florida might fare better because a lot of people in the Northeast want to come to Florida. It's romanticized. It's good weather. I mean, there's a lot of, and they have maybe family that's already moved down here or experience, or it's urbanized enough that it's in good middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We can be outdoors all year long, and then in big cities, especially where New York City, Boston, Chicago, where it's real cold.
Certainly Chicago would not be fun to be outside.
No.
Well, in the winters,
cold.
You have to be indoors, and in a big city, you're going to be indoors around a bunch of people if you're going to try to do anything, maybe.
And it is beautiful right now, by the way. I mean, like 8 months of the year, maybe even more, are amazing in Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, really the year, even in our winters, and I use that as quotes.
I was thinking summer is the bad month, like August. August, September.
Yeah.
But you still can be.
I enjoy that.
You can be outside and it's hot as hell, but it's not. It's not like winter in a city. Like you're not going to be outside in a snowstorm. It's just too damn cold, like literally life-threatening cold.
Yeah.
And in dead heat of August, I mean, if you're in the shade, it's hot, but take your shirt off, you're fine. You know what I'm saying?
You'll
like,
be all right.
You're not like you're burning alive.
You're in good shape.
Yeah, there's very little you can do. Like that's why I always argue.
Skinny, you could take your shirt off.
I always argue with people because they're always like, "Oh, I'd rather be cold," and I'm like, "Nah, dog, you don't get it." Like if it's hot, I just call you up. I'm like, "Hey, I want to jump in your pool," or I just go over to my pool and jump in the community pool. It'll eventually open up.
Are you guys spending a lot of time outside? Because I've been outside like nonstop. I do my work outside. In fact, even my toes are tan. I mean, I've never been so tan in my life.
Tan toes.
Maybe.
I think.
I'm outside a lot.
Yeah, especially here. Everybody just goes outside.
Like some of the most fun I have is even just riding my scooter around. Just kind of looking at stuff and just putting around very slow back streets in the sun.
Yeah, I mean it's
very simple.
I took my boat out last Sunday to go. I put in a marina over there by New Smyrna. I basically I looked at the next 6 months and I was like, well, if I want to use my boat, the ramps are, it's Memorial Day every weekend because everybody's got the same idea of like.
I'll try and find the article. They're thinking about policing it in a way where it's like you get there and then we're like it's almost like a queue. No more every man for himself. Oh, because they're having too many. They're having too many issues, and they're having too many knuckleheads get out there and start yelling at each other in certain fights.
Oh yeah.
So they're gonna start making it like you show up, you get a ticket, you get in queue, you put your boat in, you enjoy the day. They might shut it. I mean, everybody should be
like
cool.
Every public lake.
This is why everybody should keep their temper checked and be cool. Because when you act stupid, Even if you're just yelling and
Ruins it,
screaming, you're going to ruin it, and then they're going to come and they're going to put the police out there and lock it down.
Well, that's what I saw, like, even a month ago when I took my boat out. It was like, I've never seen this many people. Like, it was like a holiday weekend, and I was like, this is going to be like this all time. So I found a marina, like a dry dock, that I'll put it in, so
That's
I don't have
smart.
to fight the ramps.
Well, that way you got an hour window to get there, get your kids on the boat, head out, and you don't have to worry about getting in some
How
sort
often have you gone out?
And
stupid altercation.
Well, last Sunday was the first time I put the boat at the marina, and the marina is limited too because of the virus. They got
hey,
virus
Steven,
rules.
yeah, in perfect van fashion, he bought his dream boat, and then the world shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's horrible timing. Although maybe it's good timing because you can get away.
Well,
True.
What I was going to say is we just went out to Disappearing Island just for an hour or so before I took it back to the marina, and it is packed like it's Memorial Day. Like the entire, not packed in a like people are together, but
like the beaches when they open them up. I mean, just people are desperate to move around.
Yeah, I mean it's safe. Everybody's in their own area, away from each other. I'm just saying, boat wise, there's a ridiculous amount of boats out, and because of, like you said, everybody just like nothing else to do, so everybody just takes their boat out. Everybody goes outside or whatever.
I've been doing home improvement still. I that's what I was doing last time we had the show a month ago, and that's what I'm doing now. Home improvement.
Yeah,
you were doing that too, right?
Yeah.
How much have you been? What have you been? Give me a rundown, because I've been working on some stuff. I'm either here working on something at the studio, or I'm at the house working on something, and it's been a lot of weird door fixes, pantry doors, dumb stuff.
I pressure washed everything. My deck has a railing all around it, so there's a lot of rails. So I pressure washed that, and I've sanded and painted that.
Nice.
And then what else? I've recaulked a bunch of spots in my house.
Nice.
I redid like my deck chairs outside. They're like metal, and they'd kind of gotten a little rusted.
How big's your caulk?
Pardon?
How big's your caulk?
I've got a lot of space in my house, so there's
is it a pliable caulk, or is soft caulk, or like do you use a more rigid caulk?
How big's your deck?
Some of it is like gray colored to match the grout. I've got the silicone kind.
What's bigger, your caulk or your deck? Have you ever put your caulk on your deck? Touch them. You touch the caulk to the.
Too easy.
Yeah, you touch the caulk to the deck.
Have you ridden your jet skis yet?
Yes, we want to buy them.
I knew you were going to go there.
We want to buy them.
I got to get them serviced and back in shape.
Yeah.
I was in the process of getting my dock ready and doing all that, and then this damn thing hit.
You use non-ethanol gas, right? If you use ethanol gas, the carbs are going to be ruined.
Yeah.
They're dead 2 months in. You got to put non-ethanol. Go to Wawa. You know that, right, Steve?
I do.
Okay.
I do know that. But even I did non-ethanol gas in my generator, and I ran it dry, and it still clogged up in the carburetor. I soaked it. I did everything. We took that thing apart, and still it clogged up.
Yeah, sometimes.
That's running it dry. That's with stabilizer, and just if you don't run something for long enough, the carburetors don't like that.
No,
Yeah,
I looked at my
small
1959 Vespa the other day because I'm cleaning the garage.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
I looked out in the tank. It was like grape jelly in there. I'm like, all right.
Just sell it.
Yeah.
There's nothing you
Well,
can do.
I am going to clean it out.
I mean, you just got to take the carburetor out and do a little cleaning, right?
I'll clean it, but what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to put it in a position where I can store it a little bit better. Because after the move, I mean, it's so unreliable. And it's not fun to wrench on because it's all metric and Italian and weird.
Yeah. But that's such a beautiful scooter.
Oh, it's fun. I mean, I'll get it running someday or give it to Maisie.
I've been on the hunt for vintage watches. All the watchmen will be happy about that.
Now, how is the market? Are you seeing people that like maybe are, maybe they don't have their job anymore, hurting really, really bad, or maybe they can't work, or maybe they've been furloughed, that are dishing off some more pricey watches? Is this a good market?
That's not why. I hope that's not why. But I think I'm hoping that there was an article about watch dealers like, beginning of March, the meme is they got, both thumbs up, smiling big, and the end of March, they're crying. And I think that industry is hurting right now for sure, because it's just, it was on fire. I mean, it was on fire, and it's a luxury good especially for high-end watches. Nobody's buying luxury goods, right? No, nobody is. But the stuff I'm looking at is like cheap vintage watches that nobody pays attention to. The stuff that like our buddies in the Watchman group are into also.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
inexpensive stuff.
I like the really rare stuff that they have. I've gone back to doing a watch hobby that I did years and years ago.
What's that?
There's a certain series of really nice Japanese crazy watches, and what I mean by that is they're very cartoony, anime styled. They're like not for kids, but they're eccentric. They're weird. So like in order to tell time, it might be like 3 amber lights and that's it on the watch, or maybe it doesn't go clockwise, it goes backwards, or maybe it's a weird sundial to tell time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
you should post some of those in the subgroup for the BDM Watchmen.
Yeah, and there's a specific website that's been around at least 15 years that I've shopped from, and I've bought I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 watches from it. And I'm not talking break the bank. I'm talking like watches that cost like maybe between $80 and at the very most like maybe $200, right?
Yeah, they're like fun watches.
But they're Citizen brand, and Citizen, a lot of people don't know this, but Citizen makes a lot of like really crazy, awesomely kooky watches for the Asian market that we don't get. And they're a lot more fun. You think of Citizen here.
Well, the Asian market I think the Chinese market is the biggest market for Rolex. I mean,
yeah. But these are weirdo watches, and for whatever reason, I don't know why they won't branch out to America for these, because I think they, with kids that like hip-hop, with kids that they like maybe more the fun throwback 90s and early 2000s style, they'd be perfect, but, I'm not.
What's been interesting to see is that website that we both like, Uncrate.
Oh, I love Uncrate.
Even what they post on there has changed.
Yeah,
Have you noticed it?
Yeah.
It's a lot more practical, useful items, let's say. I mean, there's real estate and, some frivolous stuff, but there's more useful things.
Yeah, you probably noticed, like I did, that the Frank Lloyd Wright, the jet planes, the yachts that are it's just like a concept yacht. All of those are gone. Like they don't put those crazy. Here's a $8 million concept yacht.
There may be a little bit of class tension that develops with unemployment spiking. The reality is everybody but the super rich are going to be hit if our economy hurts, and I've always been kind of curious why there isn't more backlash to like the tech billionaires and it's been developing, and you may see a little more of that class tension and maybe a little more reticence to post.
There's an article. I think is it Newsweek that just put an article out either yesterday. I have it flagged to read it, but it's called "Rich COVID, Poor COVID," and they kind of go through.
Well, and then is it rich and poor? Or is it super rich and everybody else? Because the super rich, they're on their own islands. They got their own stuff. They got their own compounds locked away. They have their help, quarantined with them. Some of them fled to New Zealand and far off places.
Yeah.
That's a whole different level.
No,
than,
it seems
than
like
else.
The tone of this article, and I haven't read it yet, but it seems like the tone of the article is more about. Less about like the initial or group divide, and more about like the treatment of the super rich to the people that they brought along to work for them during quarantine. So it's almost like they're super rich and they're abusing us, their workers, during this time because they can, and we're sort of desperate. That's the vibe I got from it, but I haven't been able to.
I've read a few of the articles like that. I mean, there's definitely a divide there. I mean, if you can buy your own island, you're in a lot better shape than everybody else. It's kind of interesting because, I've talked to my brother. My brother's in Gainesville, and, he lives with a bunch of, he's younger than me, and he lives with a bunch of students that are either, kind of mid-20s or whatever. And in Gainesville, what he was telling me is there's all these people, if you guys didn't live there, you wouldn't know, but there's a lot of menial work there that does not pay well. There's just an oversupply of qualified, competent people and an undersupply of jobs. And what it means is there's a lot of crap jobs there that just don't pay well in Gainesville. And what he was saying with the unemployment the way it is, that there's people that have never made this much money in their life that are doubling their income or, making $10,000 a year more because of unemployment.
Right.
So they've never had this much money in Gainesville ever. And what'll be interesting is to see. I mean, not interesting. I mean, kind of sad in a way, but how this all shakes out, because effectively the unemployment is a $15 an hour minimum wage right now, because it's at the very minimum $600 a week for anybody getting it.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see, because there are going to be people that weren't making that are going to get effectively a raise, and it's created some weird incentive structures for people going back to work, by the way. And then there's going to be the super rich that are going to be survive through this, like Bezos has gained billions in value because of Amazon's increasing role and stock value. And then there's going to be middle class people that maybe made $60,000 a year that are now making 30, or made 50 and now making 30, made 100 and making 30 now, unemployed. And it'll just be, I don't know how that's going to work out, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I feel you.
I wonder what we're going to see. Okay, so we within 2008, 2010, we all, and everybody listening to this, went through the housing crisis and the last recession we went through, which directly affected all the housing and the mortgage crisis first. Obviously, that's what caused it, and home values obviously cut in half, and everybody all of a sudden was faced with living in a house that was worth half of what they thought it was, and everybody foreclosed and all that. And then the wave of that affected subsequent industry, and everything went down. So I like looking at this and
into the strongest economy we've ever had in mid-February.
Yeah, no, and then obviously it bounced back, and then this happens, and then you see the direct effect with bars and restaurants, and
this is a lot of middle class jobs, by the way.
Entertainment.
I mean, a lot of those professional career wait jobs and bartending jobs are good paying quality jobs. Those people may make between $40,000 to $100,000 a year, for professional chefs and waiters, etc. But sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. And I'm just wondering what the wave will start affecting. Like, we're already seeing the, instantly a crushing effect on bars, restaurants.
Hospitality was just
hospitality.
And the
hospital
owners too. I mean, those are small business owners that, and give a lot of people good jobs. And, those aren't a lot of those people that aren't super rich people. They do well, but, it's all relative. I mean, doing well is truly relative. What's weird is I was reading about the detachment between the stock market and the economy right now. The stock market is still, doing pretty well, despite the fundamentals of the economy being so weak. So that's intriguing too. Again, investor class, very wealthy class doing okay in that scenario. And,
right.
many other people, including middle and upper middle and, everything in between, not doing as well. Yeah, because if Steve, and you are, smarter than I am when it comes to the economy and looking at all this and the stock market and everything. So essentially, what's interesting to me is like everything stopped. The whole nation stopped because we're like, we got to stop right now to stop the spread of this. Everybody knows. So with that, though, all the money that everybody had is still just frozen, basically. It was like, hold on. So it's not really gone anywhere per se, but it's just that everybody stopped giving it to each other. And like slowly that will come back, but some industries won't, based on, the current environment and the culture and how this changes the culture of the way things are done and all that. But, you're right, as far as like the people, the rich, and
I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm a casual observer and try to be informed. So I don't want to claim and stake some expert claim, because I'm sure we have listeners that study this for a living and that maybe are economists or whatever.
Sure.
But here's what I do know what I believe I know is that when you talk about money seizing up, there's different types of money. There's that retail money out there. There's that money that is on Main Street that average people have. And then there's that institutional wholesale money that moves between banks and major corporations. And those are kind of different worlds. But what you saw, and the reason the stock market recovered from everything I've read is the Federal Reserve and the government injecting this massive amount of cash and liquidity into the markets, and effectively the Fed propping up companies and putting loans out there to keep companies' balance sheets open and to keep money moving on those institutional markets between lenders and banks and corporations and for corporate bonds. Because if those companies go down, of course the workers go down with them, is the logic.
Right.
And then, of course, a massive injection to the common people and workers too, through the spiked unemployment benefits, through the stimulus payments, and what that looks like is an effort to prevent what you're talking about. Because when money stops moving, when it seizes up, prices drop, and when prices drop, you have this thing called deflation. And when you have deflation, that's the only thing worse than inflation. That's common when you have a depression effect. An economic depression is when you have deflation. Prices drop because people stop buying things. So I think the idea was inject a ton of cash, keep things moving, and the stock market liked it. And again, people that are making less than the $600 a week plus that is coming out from unemployment are doing okay right now, as long as they're able to get their benefits. It's what is undetermined is what happens to the long-term prospects, business owners that weren't able to get that PPP program, and then people that had jobs making more than what's provided by unemployment that are now on unemployment. What happens in that scenario? And that's a question mark.
Yeah. Huge question.
I'm not into conspiracy theories, but I read some meme or some
I like
conspiracy theory
like
meme.
Yeah, great setup.
But we could talk. Talking about how this could be the catalyst to push us more towards a virtual world. That push.
But every movie where there's a virtual world is real sad and dark.
Well, I saw some meme, and there's like, what if. I mean, this stupid meme, but like, what if the coronavirus was started by, the internet, similar to like Terminator 2,
So
Skynet.
self-aware computers in Asia created a virus to spread over the world to push us inside, so we're more dependent upon them?
Yes, and this is the
like that.
This is kind of like Skynet going online, or what is it, or like becoming self-aware.
Yeah, Skynet.
Of like you,
and then they scan Shaquille O'Neal's eyeball, and he makes a basket.
I mean, the best way to push all of humanity more towards or more reliant on the internet and computers and a virtual world is making everybody stay away from each other and become more virtual, which this has done. Now, like I said, it seems like likely to me, at least, that once there's a vaccine and things, we'll get back to normal. But a lot of people will continue to do some of these habits they've learned from this, which is shop online, virtual shopping, communicate virtually. Like
I agree with that.
Some people have
the problem with the conspiracy theories, or whether it's developed in a lab or natural,
that's stupid.
It's already out there now. The milk is spilt.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying that anybody created this. I'm not saying any of this. I'm saying it's interesting.
It is, yeah.
The theory behind this is the catalyst to push us more towards a virtual world, which people will adopt, and it will accelerate where we were inevitably heading anyway.
Oh, I think it will.
Like if you look at like a Wall-E, and you're big fat just on chairs.
That's a dark world.
Living on a TV and not talking to one another.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I've never seen Wall-E, but I know I had to Google what you're talking about to reference it.
How have you not seen Wall-E, Daniel?
It's not something I'm proud of, Steve, but I'm going to try and I would imagine it's on Disney Plus, right?
Yeah.
You're a Pixar fan, aren't you?
Oh, big time. It just fell through the cracks, but would Maisie like
put it on the list?
Yeah, it's very calm. I usually put it so my sons would fall asleep for years, because it's
definitely slower than a lot of the other Pixar movies, right?
Yeah. It's very calm. There's not much dialogue. It's a very relaxed.
All right.
Speaking of conspiracy theories, and I don't know if this fits, but have you read about the theory that all the Pixar movies are related in the same world, same reality? They're all tethered together, different time frames.
No.
That's a pretty cool one. And if you look at The Incredibles, you can actually date it. It's like mid-century.
So
They showed data on one of the newspapers.
Oh, really? So it's more okay. All right.
So it's kind of like a Star Wars theory where it's all in the same realm,
Yes.
and
And there's references between the movies to each other. Like the car that's in Cars, I think it's in Incredibles actually.
What, like Hudson? Like what the
Yeah, I forget which one it is. Hold on,
the
I
older
can-
one? What's his name? Paul Newman's character.
Yes, I think so.
Hudson Turnpike or something. They all have dumb car names. Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, but I'm like, yeah, okay, I could totally see that. Oh, you guys are giving me too much homework for the next time we meet.
Well, the first thing is you should watch Wall-E. It's not my favorite one of those movies, but it's still, you gotta knock them all off.
Is
right?
it Hudson Hornet?
yeah.
Hold on, I'm looking it up right now. I'm going to tell you in a moment.
I've only seen the first
It's a
car
perfect
movie,
though.
the first Cars.
Oh, really? You
Like
haven't
the
seen
shark
all the
is in,
Pixar's?
No.
The shark
Dude,
that's in
yeah.
Maisie's
Incredibles
not-
that Bob is drawing looks like the shark, like Bruce from Finding Nemo.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And the Rock'em Sock'em is in Toy Story 2 from The Incredibles.
Correct. Now that I know. Okay.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
they do little nods to.
But I don't
other
want
movies.
nods. I
That's-
want them all interconnected because I think that would be really cool and
Yeah,
way
the Hudson
better than
Hornet is
the
the same one that's from Cars.
and way better than the Marvel universe. Sorry, nerds, but it's just way better characters.
So
Pixar.
Yeah, yeah.
back
They
to
get me in the feels.
living in like virtual reality, Steve. You think this will be the catalyst to move future generations to a place where everybody's kind of living a virtual? I mean, well,
I wonder, or do you see like when there's a cure or a vaccine or the waves work itself out or whatever happens when this is over with, do you see people come together? Do you see like the roaring 20s like you saw in America where people are partying and, you see an increased closeness as almost a reaction to it? That's the other possibility, right?
well, and yeah, because there's that aspect as well. More people have been outside. More people have started exercising outside and things like that. So there's
I
that.
like to stand on the Orlando mayor's steps with my AR. That's what I do. That's what I like doing. I like doing that, just draped in tactical gear that I'll never use. That's what I like doing.
How about this? I bought a bird feeder. That's something I've never done before.
Oh, so you can lure them in for chopping.
Actually,
That's called a trap, Steve.
Chopcom.
Actually, I brought one. I wanted the squirrels are a real problem. I always wanted fruit trees. Every time I've done a garden of fruit trees, the squirrels get it all. Never
Yeah.
get any of the fruit.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for a bird feeder that the squirrels couldn't get to, and I found the perfect bird feeder. And not only can the squirrels not get to it, but they are deterred in a funny way.
Wait, does it wing them off in a circle?
Yes.
I love those.
Oh, I've seen that.
Steven, my father-in-law has one of those.
Amazing.
One of the best purchases you'll ever make. It doesn't
I'm so
hurt.
excited.
It doesn't hurt the squirrel, but man, it'll wing them. And Jim, Jim, Andrew's dad.
yeah.
I think he souped his up because man, when it would wing the squirrel, it would wing them like I want to say like further than a super soaker into the woods. It was amazing.
I've seen that on America's Funniest
Oh,
Home
Well,
Videos.
he's got the electric. He's got the one that's battery powered, I bet. I got the one that's not battery powered, so it doesn't quite throw him quite as far. But the videos for that are amazing, and they convinced me to buy it, even though it's an expensive-ass bird feeder.
Oh, no, but you'll love it because it'll work. And I think yours is a little bit better because I think his, again, requires maintenance and you got to put more batteries in it and stuff like that.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Set it up and be done.
But those things are great, man. And they work really, really well.
Steve, because we're getting close to the end of the show,
We're going to go around the room and we're going to say one nice thing about each other.
I was thinking more along the lines of, will you get one of your swords and at least chop some fruit from your fridge, chop something.
Yeah,
I want to
chop a sausage.
and scream Chopcom just to end the show. The Twitch.
Wait, what was it? It was one bird for life.
Chopcom.
Chopcom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you scream that out and chop something live on the show? I know all the Twitch chat
I think
room.
my marketing is a little more demure than that. So
Okay, yeah, that's the smart answer, Steve. Finally, you didn't fall into one of Tom's traps.
I said, no, they'll love it.
Now,
Yeah,
what I'm perfectly okay with is if you independently want to make one of these videos. I know you've got some flea market katana laying around.
I don't.
I think you should do one and post it.
I'll chop anything.
Do you have a blade that you can spare? We'll send our resident chopper, Remy, to your house. He's fully masked and safe. He won't breach the door. You can leave it outside. He'll come and get it, and then we'll do one bird for life chop com.
Hold on. You telling me, Tom, you don't have any flea market katanas?
I don't.
I know he looks like a flea market katana guy.
I know. I don't have one
You realize
sword.
that was a diss on your house.
I'm
know.
like right in the office. I have them all over the place.
He's dissing your house.
Yeah.
He's dissing your house.
Well, is he? Because I don't have them, and Steve just said I have them all over the place. So,
well, I used to have a theory that that in the middle of the night a katana was equal to a gun for defense. And then I saw an article where some medical student chopped the dude in half with his katana that broke into his house.
he chopped him in half.
My God.
Literally.
No, it'll go into your flank, but you're in a clean chopping.
I mean,
you
you're
in
gonna
half.
die, but I mean,
And
once
maybe
it
even
hit-
not.
No, it was like on a biased angle. It wasn't literally. It wasn't down the middle. It was like on a biased angle. It was messed up.
I always wanted to do that move where you have a sword that's strong enough to go up cut and then slice them from the groin to the neck.
I don't even think
That's dark.
if you because you.
I think if I swung as hard as I could at your neck, I think I could chop your head off.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, my head. But
Easy.
But a samurai sword, it doesn't have the dent. It's in the weight. Like you need a executioner's axe to chop someone real clean. You know,
do you have an executioner's axe, Steve?
It's too light. The sword's too light.
No, I do have a Best Made Company axe though.
Ooh, Best Mate's that's good quality.
Yeah, that was it was I think our steel anniversary or something, iron, whatever it was.
Those are great.
And that was the gift that I got. It was a good gift.
That's actually handy for when this thing gets completely out of control. That Best Made axe.
Steve, let me just see one sword and just I take it out the sheath.
right.
Yeah.
And then
Here we
wave
go.
it out.
Here we go. Oh, you really got it. You got him, Steven. I told you to not do this.
Yeah,
You fell into his trap again. What have I told you?
And then
Hold on, we're in my bathroom now.
I will hope your wife's in the background taking a shower or something. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
you got it. Oh, it's in your bathroom sword.
Wow. Whoa.
Oh, what is that? Which one is that?
Hey, Juan, are we allowed to show swords on Twitch?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Swords are good.
I think swords are fine.
It's a yoki shashi.
Oh, okay, that is beautiful. That's a real sword. That's not flea market.
No, that's not. That's a real sword.
That's legit, dude.
Yeah, that's a good sword.
Chop some shampoo. Chop something.
Oh, chop that Marilyn Monroe painting. Chop her pearl necklace off.
Yeah. There's something. Chop some soap.
Chop a soap.
Chop a towel.
Chop a shampoo
I'm
bottle.
not chopping anything.
Chop your shirt off, and then I'll get horny. Come on, chop your shirt off.
There's you gotta chop something.
Yeah, come on, chop a cantaloupe.
Vinyl.
We got chopping blue balls here.
That's a great record.
Oh, chop that.
Chop that record.
Not chopping that.
Who is that? Martin Luther King? Chop that.
Duke Ellington.
Chop it all. Oh, Duke Ellington. I love Duke Ellington.
Chop the Duke.
That's a great record. I've been listening to a lot of jazz.
Take a poop on the ground and chop your own poop.
Chop something. Please.
Chop the. Okay. Take the handle off the sword. Use the sword to chop the sword handle. Or
Have you
sheath.
seen that? Did you ever see
Chop.
that episode of The Human Giant?
Chop.
You ever watch
chop,
that show?
Chop.
The guy chops off his own junk to be an internet sensation.
Stephen Kramer. Chop.
The chat room loves it. They want you to chop. They're screaming chop.
Chop.
They won't be satisfied until you chop something.
Oh.
no,
Wait, I saw turquoise. Oh, do you have pants on? You don't have pants on.
I do have pants on. I have shorts on.
Chop your
I
boxers.
thought that going pantsless, just so you know, but.
What kind of shorts? Big and ones?
Oh my God, he's got long dicky shorts and he's got slides on, like he's going to Big Lots to get a big
you, I'm
jug
tan
of cheese poops.
I'm tan now.
You're dressed like any guy who's a ringer in a pickup game. You got long and ones, big long socks, slides.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just sitting there and he's like, "What up, young blood?" And you're like, "That guy can't ball, but he can fucking ball." And then he rings you into getting on the court, and then he comes out there, he puts his blunt down or his joint, and he's dunk master on you. Doesn't matter that he has a beer belly now. Still got it.
Can you
Secret weapon.
Can you throw something up in the air and chop it in half?
Oh, chop your lights down, but turn the power off first.
All right, Steve.
Well, we love you, dude. We missed you. That was fun. Hey, honestly, next time we meet, we should probably. I'll try and find my old sword. I have an old machete or something. We should probably chop something.
By next month, the first
That'll be the teaser for the next show. We'll
first
chop something.
the first Wednesday of June, you could probably come in here, right? Well, if you can, bring all your swords, and we're gonna chop everything, and then we're gonna chop.
Let's chop this whole studio part.
I want to chop.
I don't want to do this
all
anymore.
Butler's toys, and
I want to chop his desk, his chairs.
Yeah. We'll chop.
We'll hold him down and chop his pants off.
Can you do that?
I can do that.
All right.
I'm not going to, but I can.
Well, hey, onefirmforlife.com or onebirdforlife.chop.
Yeah.
Only one of those works, so you'll figure it out.
If you're
It's not .chop, it's onebirdforlife.com.
Oh, yeah, chop.com. Sorry, not .chop.
If you need to divorce the person you live with.
If you live some old bird you want to chop her, don't chop her. Get a divorce instead.
Yeah. Or, dealing with any illegal.
There's no personal injury business right now because nobody's driving.
Yeah. I thought about that. Like, all the industry related to driving has got to be.
Including us. I mean, that's a lot of what we deal with is motorcycle accidents or car crashes, and nobody's on the road.
Yeah, no, I know. And I wonder, like tire companies, all like the Jiffy Lubes, like that's all going to be.
I represent a lot of automobile dealerships. I mean, and owners and people who work there, but they're down they're sucking wind, man. They're down 70% year to year.
Let's call up a Jiffy Lube and bring all the swords over there and just chop everything in the Jiffy Lube.
No.
If there's nobody at those places, they're all laid off right now.
We can chop oil cans. We can chop those big oil funnel looking things. I always wanted to get down in one of those things.
Do we play Carl Douglas when we're doing this?
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Kung Fu fighting?
Yeah, we play some little Kung Fu fighting. I would love that.
I want to chop the TV that they are always playing the WB on, and me and some old white guy is sitting there, and we're watching That's So Raven, and I'm like, why not put it on just the news or the Weather Channel?
No. Why even have it in there?
Like, I don't like this news channel. I like that news channel. If you put on CNN, all the Fox people hate it. If you put on Fox, all the CNN people.
Yeah.
If you put on either of them, then MSNBC people hate it.
Yeah.
No, just put on the local like Channel 12 or
like Channel 13, News Channel 13.
Yeah, News Channel 13. It's just whatever.
Where they just
it's just all lawyer commercials. Channel 13 is all lawyer commercials and weather.
Or just put it on we have the internet. Just put it on anything.
Just put it on horribly graphic porn. Everybody likes that.
ESPN.
Not everybody.
Anyway.
Well, we'll chop you later, Steve.
Yeah.
See you guys.
All right,
you, Steve.
Love you, buddy. Be good. Tell your family we said hey. Okay.
Yeah, do that for yours too, both of you.
All right, man. We'll do it later.
All right.
Be safe, Stephen Kramer.
I will not tell my family hey.
Yeah, I don't like telling my family I know that guy. I'm kidding. That's a joke.
They don't care. Crystal was like, "Hey, guess who's coming home?" They're like, Gigi? And we're like, no, it's part of our family. You love them. They're like, me? I know. I'll keep guessing. They're like, Aunt Jenny? And they're like, no, back on. No. They went through the goddamn. You don't know your old man?
How about Garage Cat? Yay, Garage Cat.
Literally went through 15 people before he guessed dad.
Yeah, this morning I didn't even get a kiss. I leaned in. I just brushed my teeth. Oh. And I leaned in. I said, hey, I'm going in a little bit early. Got to set up everything for a gentleman's guide. And I went to kiss Maisie, and she looked at me, and she goes, stinky breath. And I was like, okay, thank you. I just brushed my fucking teeth.
Yeah, my son's called me stinky breath,
I
too.
can't do anything about it. Yeah, and
I'm
then
like, it's not that bad.
Tom, I had just brushed.
Yeah,
It smelled like a candy store. And...
like, I'm not chugging cigarettes, drinking the banquet beer. You're like, I don't...
And I asked my daughter, I was like, have you smelled your breath? Have you smelled it? Did you brush your teeth? No. And then I go, let me smell your breath. And I smell it, and it smells pretty good. So I'm like, well, everything in me is dying. That's what's happening. Yeah. Everything inside of me is dying. So the stench you smell is death.
Yeah. My organs, they're letting off a death gas.
Death gas. All right. We hope you guys enjoyed A Gentleman's Guide. Thanks to Steven, onefirmforlife.com. And we will see you next month.
Welcome back to A Corporate Time with Tom and Dan. I'm Tom.
I am Dan.
So on the Skype with us right now,
God, you sound like such a grandpa.
On the Skype.
I don't know how is that how you're supposed to say it. I do sound like a grandpa.
I mean, like, I don't even think you have to say anything now because this is like the new normal, right?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't think you have to say like live via Skype or live via Zoom or
right.
on the Skype as you so perfectly said it. I feel like the one thing that I love about you, if I can, just real quick before we introduce our guest, is you have this incredible knack for always embarrassing me in front of all of our guests and friends.
Yeah. I do it on purpose.
And I just want to tell you how much I absolutely despise and hate it. And it makes me despise and hate you, and it makes me wish you were dead.
Oh, man.
That's what I wanted to tell you.
Subtle bullying is the best type of bullying.
It is. Because I can't get out of it. Because this is live, or not live, but it's recorded. But I mean, this is a product that we have to put out.
Like, I could pick you up and dunk your head in the toilet.
You could.
But that's too much. It's a subtle
It's
little
also
chipping
so
away.
hacky to pick the little guy up and put his head in the toilet. Come on, you're better than that.
Did that really happen, brother? Anyway, sorry.
Of course it did.
Did bullies really do that?
Speaking of head in the toilet.
I watched the special last night. I loved it on Amazon, iTunes. You can get it right now.
Yes.
Get out of here, devil. It's our friend Dan Cummins. What's going on, Dan?
Hey man, thank you. That was pleasant to witness your guys' brutal harassment there.
Yeah, the breakup of the show live. Live on the show.
Yeah. It turns.
I like the very friendly, smiley, death threat. I want to kill you.
Yeah.
But in a happy tone. The tone was nice.
Well, that's how we're able to just keep it moving down the tracks.
Yeah.
Because there's no plan B, Dan. You know that.
This is all we got. So Dan, let's talk about the special real quick. I watched it last night with my wife.
The production values on
great.
this particular special are phenomenal, dude. Well done.
Oh, thanks, man. It was Comedy Dynamics. They do a good job. They're like outside of like the Netflix originals. They actually they do some of those, but they do the most comedy specials right now, and they really have it down to a science. It was impressive just to see the production, because I've shot multiple things over the years, but man, it's like they rolled in, they had everything dialed in perfectly. They made it so easy. Their editing was crazy. Like after we finished it, I was expecting to wait for a month or 2 months to see like the rough cut of the first cut of the special. I think they sent me something in 2 days. I was like, how is that even possible?
My God. Yeah.
They were on it.
Also, Dan, I saw you put on Instagram that number one on iTunes.
Congrats, man.
And
Thanks.
when did you film this special? Because I feel like, if there's a silver lining in any of this, like comedians that film their special prior to this and then it's done and can release it during these times where everybody is at home and is craving anything to watch, like has made out of, I feel like this is better for specials and for anything, any content that's getting released right now.
I mean, it was, and that was definitely planned. I remember right after we filmed it in October, I took a trip to Wuhan, China, and I started around with these bats and these pangolins, and I was like, I gotta fucking spread it here, and then I gotta get the 5G to boost it around the world. And kind of get it, timed right for people to watch now. But no, it is nice to for me, it was nice I hadn't seen it since we barely started editing it, and then I did watch it for a little Instagram kind of Q&A thing. I wanted to familiarize myself again, and it was just nice to see oh yeah, it wasn't that long ago that things were like this. Just in October, everybody was going to venues, and people were hanging out, and I was like, okay, this is we'll get back there, and it was just a nice reminder of a more normal time.
And so what I found interesting, and I kind of want to talk about podcasting and your podcast, and also we appreciate you bringing us up on Bert Kreischer's latest episode.
Yeah, that's why anybody would do that is beyond me. But hey, thank you, dude.
Yeah, a bunch of BDMs had told us hey, Dan and Bert were talking about you. They gave you a shout out, and we're like, oh, that's awesome. And that stuff really we do appreciate, dude, and it's awesome to do that. But so
that's another long play too, though. I've been planning that since I first met you guys. There's been a whole series of plans. The end payoff is I want both you guys to suck my dick at the same time, and I know that you're not into that. So I just have to slowly build through rapport, and I had to start a podcast. This has all been leading to a moment that's coming up.
Let me
in a
ask you
couple-
something.
We're ready now.
Yeah, did Bert Kreischer tell you that we don't like to double dick suck? Because I'm fully in.
Yeah.
In fact,
Daniel was in before.
I was double dick sucking just not even before you even Skyped in.
It was the Bert Kreischer plug that got me fully in.
Yeah.
That was the final straw.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I have no
And I
gag
can't think of
reason.
2 dicks I'd rather suck more than Dan and Bert.
We're throwing out the radio.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah. We're just
Yeah,
gonna have
that's
to.
all right.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have to
We're
release
just
it.
gonna power through it. Yeah, we're just gonna power through it.
Radio? Who's listening to the
Ah,
radio?
you get. Yeah, it's only 3 edits. So 4. It's 4 edits so far. We'll be
Okay.
fine. We'll be fine.
But that brings me to the conversation of podcasting, and I know I haven't. I plan to listen to the Bert Kreischer podcast later today, but Butler gave me kind of the synopsis, and you guys were talking about, this is a viable way to make a living now, and it's interesting too because like. Dan, you've been thriving with your podcast, and you had everything obviously set up for this. And I feel like right now, like we've heard that the all these webcams are sold out, and podcasting equipment's hard to get a hold of because everybody's trying to do shows from home. And for the people that are already pre-set up for it, it's kind of like
We are like audio preppers.
we have the. You're completely set up to put out entertainment and good quality.
We already had
entertainment.
the bunker built. None of you guys believed us.
Yeah.
And now the sky's falling, and here we are laughing.
I mean, we've seen it with other like terrestrial radio around the country. Like everybody's going to like at-home studios, and like we're like frantically trying to set up their at-home studios. And Daniel's right. For those that already like audio preppers that had everything set up, it's been a lot easier for us to kind of just continue as we were. So do you feel like this is increased your audience with the you're already set up for putting out
and now you're trapped with like your partner in crime. You got your wife there. You guys do a great show. You do your show.
You have everything you need.
You have everything you need, right?
No, we're so fortunate where because of our subscribers and stuff, and that was a model we talked about, with you, that I talked about with you guys, years ago, was adding a subscription service, and that saved us in this time where we can keep our employees paid and keep putting out content and focus actually more on podcasting right now, where some of my comic friends are trying to kind of navigate into like Zoom shows. I did one for charity, and that was it for me. It's like I only did it because it was a cause, but it's like, okay, for me, I'm like, I'll resume stand-up and thinking about stand-up when touring can start again in earnest. I'm not going to do some like half version of stand-up for me anymore. And so what I've done is just shifted all my focus outside of promoting the special to just podcasting. And we're working on another show we've been thinking about for a long time. Like I originally envisioned a long time ago, 3 shows: Time Sucks, Scared to Death, and then this other just not just nothing but comedy goofing around show.
Yeah.
And we actually have time because I'm not touring all the time to get that show off the ground, and we have the staff, and I'm so thankful that I have podcasting to keep me busy, give structure to my day, keep money coming in and pay the bills.
I also think it's extremely admirable that you decided to continue paying your staff. Because we did not. And in fact, we went one step further, and we've just demanded that they come to work. And
but not pay.
No. We'll see how this thing pans out first.
They're essential volunteers.
Yeah. That's what we tell
Well,
them.
they're not even really essential. It's just I don't want to do all the work myself.
But it's been nice to like reach new people, during this, and have something. An outlet that, that the pandemic doesn't affect like it does, obviously, like live shows.
Well, you're in a different area, too. I mean, being that you're in Idaho, and the fact that, I would imagine, like in my mind, in my imagination, I'm creating that you're not all up on top of each other, that there's a lot of land out there. And do you feel like it's completely different there? And then when you see images like on, the news or stuff like that, that it's like night and day compared to where you're at right now in your state?
Well, we got rid of it. We have a lot more guns here, and we killed it. We shot the virus out.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I heard. Blew some holes right in it. Swiss cheese.
It's
But it is different. I mean, actually, it's funny. I was doing some radio call-ins for the special last week, and one of the call-ins was a New York radio station, and they got kind of mad at me for my response to the shelter in place, because I was saying, I'm like, well, things are kind of opening up here, and I'm glad, it's like, we got to get the economy going, we got to keep going, and they were like, whoa, but it's still crazy, and I'm like, for you, it's crazy,
Right.
But we don't live in New York. Like, we don't live in New York. I understand in New York City. I have friends in New York City. It's terrible there because it's an urban living, environment where people are, stacked on top of each other, and a communicable disease is going to spread very differently there. I mean, in Idaho, it's like, we are kind of, especially northern Idaho, more loners, more kind of antisocial by nature.
Yeah.
Don't gather in large groups for the most part around here, just in normal life. And things other than, some of the restaurants obviously are closed, but the rest of them, their pickup services have been doing pretty well. Instead of going out to eat, people just go grab stuff and go home. And, life other than that is, school's not in, which has, been different, obviously. But in a lot of ways, it's kind of the same.
Yeah, I mean, we've felt the same thing when, like, in Central Florida, where there's not that many cases, and it's, we're not in a gigantic city. We felt the same way, or like, and that's kind of an interesting psychology with this whole thing, where people are kind of treating this this gigantic nation of ours as of, like, if everything was the same variable, which is not. Like,
I don't think you can do that. Yeah.
Everybody lives in different scenarios. Every city is different as far as population goes and how spread out. So, so it's kind of odd. We're watching like a national news, and we're listening to people say one like stipulation that kind of covers everybody, but everybody lives in different variables, and there's like different situations, but and no one's taking that into account. Like, it's like, oh, this set of circumstances applies to everybody.
Well, the other thing that I've noticed, and Dan, tell me if you've noticed this, the other thing that I've noticed, and I know you probably have to be plugged in because obviously you want people to watch your special, which I would urge everybody to do right now.
Yeah.
Go and find it. And super easy. Just type his name in. It pops right up. Actually, a Buick dealer or something pops up.
Oh, yes.
Sorry about that.
Actually, you got to go to dancummins.tv.
Go right under it, and because you don't want a car, you want a comedy special. But
I watched it last night real quick, and this is what I
please.
found. If you search Dan Cummins on Amazon Prime, I watched it on Amazon, your first special comes up. If you search Get Out of Here Devil, then the new special comes up. Obviously, there's one on there from 2017, but you want the 2020 Get Out of Here Devil.
They're really good.
Yeah.
And here's an easy thing to do. Just type in Get Out Devil, and it's the first thing that does pop up.
Yeah.
That is a fact. I did both, so I would be knowledgeable. But have you found that most people on Facebook are doctors now, Dan?
Oh yeah. Yes, on social. I mean, and I have to fight from like trying to spread things too. But but there is. Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, you know what annoys me, I guess, on social media is we were talking about this in the office yesterday. Is very few people seem to look at the total picture. It's like if somebody is economy minded, then they're just like, okay, we got to open up everything right now. We got to open up. We got to save the economy.
Yeah.
There's that argument. And then if somebody from like the medical field, they're like, oh, we got to keep things sheltered. We can't let the hospitals get flooded and that. But very few people are just like, hey. There's the medical aspect, there's the economic aspect, and kind of looking at it in like a broader view.
Yeah.
And I've been so annoyed that in the media that happens where you have like health experts saying, hey, we got to have everything shut down until 2021, and then and then you have economists saying like we got to open up everything right now, and it's like, no, you fuckers need to get together and talk to each other and figure out like a reasonable plan that is a compromise between the two, because we can't shelter in place forever.
No.
That's nonsense. And you also, there's an argument where you can't just necessarily open everything fully back up in every single city right away. So I just wish people would be more reasonable in the media and just, on socials and everything.
Well, it turns out that everybody likes the extremes of one or the other.
Yeah.
Nobody likes logical middle ground, which...
And I think Facebook is
exactly.
the new equivalent to, like, Facebook to me and having a differing opinion, and then just telling everyone on your feed to go F themselves is like the new equivalent of the drunk dad coming home from work after the boss yelled at him and kicking the dog. You know what I mean? Like it's the digital dog kicking, if you will.
I see it a lot with celebrities. I got so annoyed early on. I've been a huge, especially watching TV, movies and stuff in the 80s as a kid and all the action movies. I became like a huge Schwarzenegger fan.
Yeah.
And, like Commando and Predator.
We were just talking about that yesterday.
Oh, dude, there's so many good ones. And the bodybuilding. I mean, I've always thought Schwarzenegger is funny and just liked a lot of like different things, he's done career-wise. And then he was early on just beating this drum of basically stay in your house until all the experts tell you different. And if you're not doing that, you're an idiot. And it's not that bad. And it's easy to stay in your home. As he's sitting in this like hot tub in this palatial mansion with millions in royalties. And I'm like, yeah, tell that to the waitress who is worried about paying rent, you dick.
Meanwhile, he's smoking a cigar that's worth more than what she makes like in a night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of celebrities, like, I don't want to name a bunch of names, but it's like other names. But I mean, a lot of, even like bigger comics and stuff, especially New York based, have been saying that kind of same message and looking at people in other states and be like, oh, you're such an idiot for going outside. And it's like, well, A, you don't live in those other states, so you actually don't know what you're talking about. And B, it's like when you're rich and you can just stay in your house for a year and have it, and still be rich at the end of that year.
Right.
You can approach this in a very different way than somebody who had 2 weeks worth of savings in their bank account.
Yeah, still be rich is the key there. Absolutely.
Also, it helps when you got a swimming pool and a tennis court for things you need to do.
Killing time.
Yeah. It's when you live on a private lake and you can ride your jet skis around. Listen, I even know it's not that bad to stay in my house. Like I have a swimming pool, I have a yard for the kids to play in.
You got a boat.
Yeah, I got a hot tub, I got a boat. Like
you got a red room of pain.
If I live
He's over humble bragging, Dan.
well, no, but if
that's the only reason he wanted to talk to Dan Cummins is so he can give him the rundown of his house.
But guess what? I don't go on social media and be like, stay at home, you idiots, you fools. Well, I sit in my hot tub and why would I say that? Like everybody, listen, I'm doing my thing. Everybody's doing their thing. But for you to be judgmental on people, you're right. If you live in a studio apartment and you have 200 square foot of living space, you want to get the hell out of there. It's a lot different.
Well, you should have worked harder before the virus.
You live in a 5,000 square foot house. Easier to stay inside.
Not my fault.
Anyway, so Dan, I wanted to ask you about this because from watching your special, you do something a lot in your special that I often think about if I'm going to do in the future, and I'll explain. Anyway, you talk a lot about your kids, and your kids are older, so they are, I imagine, are fully aware that you talk about them in your special, correct?
No, they're both super dumb, and they don't get it.
Well,
they do. They get it, yeah.
Because I talk about my sons all the time, and I have throughout their whole lives on the show.
Yeah.
And I often think to myself, I'm like, I wonder if the dynamic is going to be different once they're aware, like once they're
Well, they're funnier than
teenagers.
you, so when their specials come out, they'll be talking about you.
And I'm like, I wonder if me mentioning things about them or integrating their lives into content is gonna. I wonder what they're gonna think about that. And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, is that something that you had a conversation with them about, or?
Yeah.
Wow, this is like a real press junket, and not just us talking with a friend.
It is. I actually, because as they got older, and it started, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Like when they were real little, I would just do kind of whatever jokes.
Yeah.
And then once they got, once Kyler got, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, maybe 8 years old or something like that, I did start to think more about like, okay, now there's certain things like soon his friends are going to hear them. I don't want them to tease him, at a certain age level. So I do a thing now where they have veto power. Like all the crazy things I told them or talked about on the special about them, there were other things that I worked out, over a few shows live. And then I would be like, hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? And there was definitely several stories that got shot down in the sense that it would have been just too embarrassing for them. And there's a lot of stories. My daughter tends to shoot more down or is more worried. And there's a lot of stories where I'm just filing away. And then, when she's like 20, it's like, okay, now I get to unload all the stories about her between the ages of like 9 and 15.
Yeah, you're doing it like the Michael Jordan documentary. You're holding on to these things, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to keep coming back to her every year like a parole hearing, and you're going to be like, all right, where are we at with, I don't know, poop in your pants in gym class? And not okay. Well, I'll see you in a year. I think that's a great idea, dude.
Like how he threw the Bulls under the bus for doing like coke and having hookers in the room. I'm gonna wait on those stories for a while. Exactly.
Yeah, until you get full permission.
Right.
Also, Dan, I wanted to ask you about.
Is that Paisley on the cover with you?
Oh yeah, that is.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe's actually just right in the other room right now.
Okay, give him some love because I thought he makes a really good devil. He looks good.
Yeah, that was fun. There was a photographer in the same building as our studio's in, so it was the easiest photo shoot ever. We just walked down the hall.
Your production values are just so good, dude. So good.
Oh, nice. I'll tell him too. Yeah.
So on your special, I also noticed too, like when you first came out, you made some podcast references that were obviously everybody in the crowd were fans of. I imagine that there was a lot of people in the crowd that listen to Time Suck, listen to your podcast, and so with that, is the dynamic changing at all? During your live shows, or at least obviously none now, but in what you noticed in the past couple of years where you're now talking to only your audience, like in your hardcores and stuff, and does that make it easier for you because you know that these are your listeners? I've always wondered that.
So you're saying so you get less of the I'm just going to the club because I love stand up. I've heard of this guy but never seen him live. I'm interested to see what he's about. But now he's getting I am a space lizard. I listen to him every day. I'm coming there to see my hero. The difference in the crowd dynamic.
Because
interesting.
Just to give you an example, because me and Daniel have only done live shows for let's be honest, for BDM. So we've never gone and done a live show for an audience that doesn't know us. Like, it's our audience.
I have a feeling it would end up like a Borat scenario where a bunch of rednecks are hitting us over the head with beer bottles or trying to run us out of a bar.
We're not stand-ups. We don't have an act that's universally funny like you do. So it's like we only can broadcast to our BDMs, basically, and they know us, and it's easier for us. But for you who've been doing stand-up for so long and stuff, you can go up and do your act, your stand-up in front of total strangers, and they will think it's funny because the jokes are funny. But doing it in front of your hardcores, I mean, someone was dressed like a lizard in the special, which got cut
awesome.
And so, is the dynamic change for you at all? Like, because I find it pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like, I did so many other albums where all the material was built in front of audiences that had no idea who I was. And so you have to structure things differently, and you have to win each audience over, with your first 5-10 minutes because, they have no idea who you are and they're maybe a little more reluctant to kind of go along with you. And then this last hour, this Get Out of Here Devil, was the first special that was built from start to finish in front of crowds that, primarily especially towards the end and for the taping, we're pretty familiar with what I do. And it's just a different comfort level. It does make it easier. And I feel like I could kind of push things further. And I don't know, not that I would hold back on previous ones, but there was definitely, I didn't have to worry about necessarily offending people the same way as I had in the past. And it was pretty funny building this material. Like, one of the more outlandish stories I've told on stage, the banana peel bathroom thing I told on this one. That was one story where I could tell, because sometimes people will bring their friends that, weren't familiar with you, and you do still get some randoms. And the randoms were so easy to spot in that story, where it's like the diehard fans loved it. And then every show, there would be at least a few people in the crowd that were like, why are people laughing at this? Like, this is disgusting. Like, this is disturbing. What is happening here? But that made it really, it definitely was more fun for me this last tour. Just really being able to just not worry about offending anyone, because previously I would always do what I would want to do, but I'd be nervous every week at a comedy club because if you only make 20% of the people at a random comedy club laugh, you're not going to come back.
Yeah.
So you're
Right,
always
right.
feeling torn between like you want to stay true to what you do artistically, but you also, if you don't do a good enough job, you're not going to come back. Where now I'm able to go to shows and I truly don't give a shit about random people walking in. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care if they're offended. I don't care if they hate it. If they like it, great. But if they hate it, I don't care because I have enough people who do like it coming in, and it makes the shows way more relaxed and fun.
That makes sense.
So, Dan, this kind of leads me to my next theory that I've been thinking about, and I want to get your opinion on it because it has to do with stand-up and it has to do with this new age of entertainment and how audiences are. And it has to do with Louis C.K.
Okay.
So we're going to tread kind of lightly because we realized, me and Daniel had this conversation that, you're not going to change some people's minds about Louis C.K. Some people will hate him until the day he dies and never support anything he does.
It's kind of like politics. It's
And-
very presidential in that regard. you know?
Yeah. It's very polarizing, but we're not going to talk anything about that. But what I found interesting is, so Louis C.K. came out with a new stand-up special, and he's
We're not here to talk about that, Tom.
No, well,
We're here to talk about Dan Cummins. How dare you?
and
Jesus
Wow.
Christ. I'm so sorry.
well, I watched it, and what I found most interesting. Did you happen to see it, Dan?
No, I haven't seen it yet. But I think he's a brilliant comic mind.
Yeah, and so what I found interesting is he goes way over the top to the point where it seems like in his mind he's like, well, everybody, the people that hate me and will never come back. And
Right.
and I am now just doing. My stand up is going to be whatever I want. Is going to push the limits so far because my career has essentially been ruined, and stand up is what is going to stand up is probably going to be the way he makes money forever now. I imagine that studios and a lot of big commercial media will stay away from him.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
And so he'll just self-distribute his own things, and he went to, he does some bits that are I was like, whoa, he stopped caring, the audience.
But he
liked
knows
it.
he's got his guys.
Yeah, and it seems like he's just doing he's saying whatever he wants, and his particular audience and the audience that still wants to watch him do stand-up doesn't care, and that told me, I was like, man, it seems like we are moving closer and closer to a world where people have their audience and people do stuff to just their audience, and that's it, and you can make a living doing that, and no longer do you have to care about what big networks think or studios, and unless you want to go that route because they still have money to pay people, but you can now live independently from the system because you could distribute yourself. I mean, Louis C.K. started a long time ago doing it, but now more than ever it seems like you can self-distribute and not care what anybody thinks or what anybody gets offended by because it doesn't matter anymore.
Absolutely. First off, I do want to apologize. Just when you brought up CK, it made me feel a little awkward. I've been jerking off this entire time.
Yeah. I saw it looked like you were stirring something.
I just thought that was the internet, or I thought you were making some of Lindsay's world famous buttermilk. I didn't know what was happening there. I just and I did think I saw Joe peek in the frame just a little bit.
No, but with what you're saying, I mean, I think it's so beautiful where people can just only worry about their audience and not care about anyone else. Where like when I got into comedy, I've always been more of a music guy. I've always listened to a lot more music than I have comedy.
Me too. Yeah.
And the artists I've liked have tended to have been a lot of more independent leaning artists. People without big #1 Billboard records and things, but people who I like a lot more than the people who do tend to sell more records.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. It's when you get kind of niche, I think it becomes more pure. You're getting an unfiltered artistic perspective. You're not getting somebody trying to kind of compromise and appeal to a broader audience. I think and a lot of my favorite comics have been like that. Doug Stanhope has been one of my favorite comics since I started stand-up.
He's fantastic.
And he's always been that. He's always just been who he is and not cared if who it offended. And he's so good at his craft that he always has enough of an audience to keep doing what he's doing, and it's brilliant to me. And I always like, man, that's the kind of stuff like I would like to do. And I love now that we live in a time where it's easier to do that. Like, you don't need millions. If you have thousands of fans, if you're lucky enough to have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of fans, you can make a great living and you don't have to compromise at all. And like the business model has changed so much where, like it's funny, like I went from trying to get, producers to give me meetings and trying to get on like a TV show when I was down in LA, to the last couple of years, I've shifted focus. I mean, that just never worked out for me. If it would have, I guess I would have went on a different trajectory. But now we have producers hit us up, and I'm not saying this in some like, oh, I'm big time, because I'm not, but I do blow them off now, because the way a network would pay, I would have to like not be in Idaho. I would have to like be away from my family more.
Yeah.
I would have to compromise. I would have to have a lot more network feedback. I might have a bigger audience reach, but that doesn't mean they would like me necessarily. And I wouldn't get paid that much because it would be a different pay scale. Like, I know comics and actors in LA who have huge resumes. They are on all kinds of stuff. They're like, second tier on a sitcom, sometimes the lead on a sitcom, or they have hosted numerous shows, reality shows on cable for years. And if they were to do a podcast, maybe they'd have, 500 listeners. Like, even though they have all that exposure, nobody really cares about them because you get such a watered down version of them on these shows. And I love now that you can just do your own thing, totally commit to what you want to do, and have that be enough. And you don't need, it's not a stepping stone anymore.
Yeah.
It's like when I think about building up Time Suck and building up Bad Magic Productions, what we're doing here, it's so exciting to me because I've always loved entrepreneurs, small business owners, and there is no goal after that. It's not like, oh, I want to do this so then I can get in movies. I personally don't give a fuck about that. It's like, I just want to do this to keep doing this, and I love it.
Yeah, and that, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna listen to it today, but I know you were talking to Bert Kreischer about you don't need gigantic audiences anymore, and like the notion of you need millions of followers or you need hundreds of thousands of our audience isn't that big. Me and Daniel
and we have like a solid 32, 35 people that just settle in every Friday and get their laugh on.
And honestly, we are doing fine and doing better than we would have if we were like the hosts of some terrestrial show on the radio.
There's so much more uncertainty in that job as well because you're not pulling any of the strings.
You can get fired at any time. You're not in control of your own destiny. But also, even if you want to look at just base pay, this still happens where people will come to us and be like, well, if someone offered you a morning radio show, you guys would take it, right? Of course. Like that and I'm like, we're like, no, why would we do that? Like, we get up at 4:30 in the morning, and by the way, we would make less money. Like, you don't understand how this works. That's the reality of the situation. 100%. We would make less money. We would not be in control of our product. We'd actually have to dumb down our product and not do what we want. We'd be controlled by sales and by corporations.
It's less of a dumb down and more of a we curse.
We're
pretty dumb.
Well, but people almost like don't believe us when we tell them that, and we're here to like it's true. Like, and Dan, what you're saying, like if you work for some network TV show, like you would be controlled. You wouldn't. You would probably make less. Like it's the way the world works.
To go back to Dan's special and to go back to Bad Magic and what he's put together with his team and his wife, if you look at the production quality of what they're putting out, because they have the time and because electronics are really not that crazy expensive anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the production values that he's pumping out are probably better than he would get if he went somewhere else and had them do it because they're having to do it for everybody. He's the only client.
It's like craft beer.
I love it.
You could use better ingredients.
Beer,
Yeah, I mean, you're able to use better ingredients in your production than a mainstream media corporation would. Because
better ingredients, better podcast. Now we all have a meeting, and then I'll just start yelling the N-word on the line. And then
Shaq will come in.
And then Shaq will come in. And then what do? I go red-faced sweaty onto every podcast I can, and I tell everybody I ate 80 pizzas in 2 days. That guy's the worst human being alive. Oh, Papa John, F you. You're the worst.
Sorry to go into podcasting. Everybody's tired. They're like, we know you idiot.
We get it, you podcast.
Yeah. This is just what Dan and Bert said, and you're just saying it worse.
No, but it is exciting. It is exciting, and it is interesting how a lot of people, it's not their world and they don't understand it necessarily. But it is funny. There's that mentality that, and I've had to work to get it out of my head, where people will be like, "Oh man, you're doing well," and they'll kind of like jump, and especially in stand-up, they're like, "Oh, I hope you get a sitcom," or "I hope you get this." And because they don't understand that not everybody wants that,
Right.
and that you actually might make a lot less money doing that. I feel like people always think you're lying.
Well,
we
get
it rationalized. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I don't need that big TV show. I'd rather go to my weird office building and sit in front of my laptop because that's where the real money is. Like, you sound like a lunatic.
Yeah.
We get weirder ones because we're still on radio with ACT.
Yeah.
And because we do the podcast, it's very difficult to get people to understand that the podcast and the BDMs are our subscribers, and the shows that we do for them, in our eyes, are infinitely more important than the radio show. And people will actually still tell me to this day, like, to my face, like, I'll have it happen this week at some point. Somebody will tell me, "Oh man, hey, you're going to get back on radio. You're going to do it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Or you'll have to go back to radio. I've heard that from people.
You've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like what? Like, this is 2020. It's pandemic. There's that's it.
We're here.
Yeah. This is it. This is what we want to do. By the way, and like Dan said, like people, you can't get through your mind. Like, wait a minute. Like, it's the giant production companies, it's the giant corporations. That's where the money's at. And like, man, things are shifting where your audience will support you just fine. And then, by the way, not only support you, but there's who knows how long it could, your entire career. Like, you don't have to constantly worry about getting fired or like.
And just to circle back to what Dan was originally saying, if you take one of Dan Cummins, like just a post, let's say it's a post of him and his boy in all gold costumes, gold fedoras, and they're, that was the funniest thing I've seen. Okay, let's take that clip, and then let's take a clip for any news station here in Orlando or radio station here in Orlando, and they come out on Instagram at exactly the same time, and look at Dan's clip and look at his listener base just eat it alive and participate, and look at how active and engaged they are, and then look at the other media outlet, and there's nothing there. There's no engagement level. There's zero engagement. In fact, there are radio stations and people that post things, and I'll see not even one like. That's how much we've tuned it out.
Yeah,
because there's nothing unique about it.
Yeah, there's so much noise, and now it is it's the age of the content creator, and it's the age of people really like doing their own thing, and I think it's just going to get more and more that way. As we were talking about this, I was just thinking about like what an interesting time it is where, and I don't have the numbers to totally prove this. But I would bet that last year, Joe Rogan, as a podcaster, made more money than any A-list movie star off of their movies.
Yeah.
Almost anyone. Maybe there's some back-end deals with like Guardians of the Galaxy or something where they got some cut of the profits. But I mean, I don't know. There's rumors that he makes, as the most, listened to podcaster in the world, basically.
Yeah.
That he makes, somewhere around $100 million a year.
I've heard that.
Yeah. I mean,
when you got money to,
have your own private doctor give coronavirus tests to all your guests right before you interview them to find out. Yeah, but
I can't even afford an effing bug man. Like my house has roach and rat infestation.
But Dan, look how fast. Like I know this. I mean, it's still years, but I remember when Joe Rogan only had Fleshlight. Like Fleshlight was the only company that would advertise with him. I mean, this wasn't that. What are we talking? 10 years or less than 10 years?
Less than 10.
And so it's crazy how fast it progressed, and now to the point.
It's crazy how much better the Fleshlight is too. It's really good now.
And And there's no going back now. It's like once companies realize that they can get in front of a way more engaged audience advertising through Rogan, that's where they're going towards. And I think they're pulling their money from the traditional media. I mean, I can't imagine there's companies like, you know what, we should do more TV commercials. Like, who's doing that? Like how could that be? It's dead.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, not totally dead, but there's obviously sports and stuff, and TV commercials will still be a thing, but it can't be as much
Tom,
of a thing.
no, there isn't sports and stuff.
Well, not now, but
yeah, ESPN is the weirdest. It's been my palate cleanser, my mental palate cleanser for my entire adult life. It's like I'm working on something, and then I go over to ESPN.com. I check out sports stories. I don't even really care about most of them, but I'm just curious what's going on in the sports world. And I do like numbers where I'm like, what? So-and-so had this many touchdowns. Oh, my God. Or, oh, what? So-and-so hit 3 home runs and had 7 RBI. That's amazing. It is the weirdest website now where they will milk nothing's happening. So it's like there was just, some guy, I don't know, might have gotten like a third tier player was maybe going to get traded to a team, and they ran that as one of the lead stories for like 5 days in a row. It's like it's got to be such a weird thing to write for ESPN right now.
Oh yeah,
I turned it on, and this isn't. I'm not even making a joke here. I turned it on. I had to write it in my phone because I didn't think you guys would believe me. I turned on one of the ESPNs, and they were running the 2003 Child Spelling Bee.
yeah.
And
desperate.
I was like, oh my God. But I sat and watched it because nothing else is on, but it was just really odd to me that they had what did they have to get a guy to go get the tapes in a room of spelling bee tapes?
They've been brainstorming weird stuff. Like what if we started a yo-yo league, yo-yo championships?
Yeah.
And then have a guy yo-yo in his room for an hour, and then another guy yo-yos in his room. They're just desperate for what can we do now?
It's odd.
Oh, you got an army of writers too that have nothing to write about, so they're coming up with anything. They're just pulling any possible story. I mean, their life was saved by the Jordan documentary because that provided a bunch of. But when that's about to be over, they're going to be in trouble for.
But I think we can all agree that the main good thing to come out of all of this is Jimmy Fallon and the Roots are playing kids' instruments and singing silly songs.
They've always done that.
Then that's awesome. I thought that COVID would actually stop that. I was kind of looking forward to it, but didn't happen.
So, Dan, thanks so much for Skyping with us today.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Go watch that special.
Yeah, Get Out of Here, Devil. I watched it last night. Loved it, and of course, Time Suck. Scared to death as well. Got any? I know you mentioned some other podcasts that you have planned. Anything?
Is that the one you told me about that I'm not supposed to talk about?
I'm sure it is.
I know,
we don't know when we're going to launch it yet.
I'm excited for it, dude. It's going to be awesome.
We've done some tech runs, and at least we were laughing a bunch. But it's just around. Yeah, it's me and Joe Paisley, and we'll launch it here soon. It's just a fun free for all. We're just have a bunch of weird segments, just really goofy, all around people just doing and saying dumb stuff on the internet, and so it's the first non-narrative one. We're scared to death of stories. Time sucker stories. This one is just riffing off of the weird and horrible things people do online.
I love it.
And we're excited for it.
Cool,
awesome.
Man. Well, give the family some love from us, man. Give Lindsay some love from us, Joe, and your whole team, and all the people that we know. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you again super duper soon.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys before too much longer. And
that's never going to happen again.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's over.
You'll never see us again, Dan.
No.
This will be the last time.
Yeah, I mean, human contact. That's all gone. It's all gone.
No, I love that you guys are doing great, man. I'm still huge fan. Always will be, and it's just it's awesome to see you guys just continue to. Just push forward and find innovative new ways to create content and keep building your audience. It's super cool.
Well, thank you, dude. Man. You're always too kind to us, man, and we cherish and value your friendship. So stay safe, but we know you are, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, Dan. Later. That is our good friend. We love him, Dan Cummins, live via Skype. And go get that Get Out of Here, Devil.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
on iTunes and Amazon right now.
I wonder what. Damn it! I forgot to ask him. Like, what benefits you more? Like buying or renting? Does it matter? Streaming? Like what?
I rented it on Amazon. I think you could rent it from iTunes too.
Well, it's Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, and Xfinity On Demand.
Oh,
It's
Apple
the-
TV.
It's like the same questions that people ask us. Like, do I hit play? Do I download? Just do it all.
Uh-oh.
How about just do it all?
Yeah.
Did you hear me almost throw up there? Yeah, I almost threw up there.
I think if you rent it, that definitely he'll get kickback from that.
Yeah.
Or any service, I think.
Yes, sir. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah, we're out of here.
That's it for us. TomandDan.com for all things Tom and Dan. Buy some merch. That helps out our merch guy. If you're not a BDM, sign up. If you are a BDM and you can lift your level maybe one notch, we'd appreciate that. YouTube, search Tom and Dan Live for replays of this show, of every show we put out, and always on Twitch. If you ever want to catch us live, check out the new Fish Cam, hear some of the lunchtime tunes we've been playing, because we basically broadcast the entire day. You can always search Twitch. Again, Tom and Dan Live. Everything is Tom and Dan Live.
Bye-bye.